The IAB is connecting digital campaigns to real in-store results through what we're known for, which is standardization. So we've done a lot of work on standardizing measurement in the store and online in digital formats. And what I think that really means is making sure that the industry is speaking the same language, right? So making sure that we all are talking about things the same way, but also making sure that things like formats are standardized in the store, making sure that the way in which we look at viewability or impressions in the store is standardized. But I think what's even more important is that we make this information, these standards, translatable and consumable to the average person in the retail world. So there are lots of different, one of the things that is so fascinating about this world is that there are lots of different players within retail media. There are merchants, there are digital folks, there are shopper teams on the brand side, there's trade and sales folks on the brand side. And not all of them are digital, what I would call like digital professionals, right? They have remits and expertise in things that have overlap into digital, but they are not owners of things like media and advertising in their own right. So I think we have to make these standards, and what I'm working on today, a lot of taking the standards that have been set and making them consumable, bite-sizable, if you will, to those masses of folks in the retailer-brand relationship.
So third-party cookies still around. They're not completely dead yet, but just for the sake of argument, let's say third-party cookies gone away, can't use them. What signals are best for tracking in-store impact?
This is where retail media is, I think, shines the brightest. Is when we're looking for signals in the space that are outside of third-party cookies, retailers have first-party data, opted-in first-party data. They have privacy-safe proxies like loyalty IDs, like information about the customer that transcends both digital and physical. There's also clean room environments and collaborations that have gone on to get around the deprecation of the third-party cookie. So these are the signals, I think, going forward that are going to be incredibly important to make sure that we're not only helping brands justify the spend that they have in retail media networks, but also making retail media even more valuable in the digital advertising ecosystem because of those unique qualities that retailers have, and that's really what their media networks have. A big part of what their media networks have been built upon is that privacy-safe first-party opted-in data.
In-store analytics can be something of, to put it mildly, maybe something of a mess at times. How can brands and retailers get on the same ROI page when it comes to connecting real-world insights?
Yeah, connecting those real-world insights to the messiness of the store. The reason it's so messy is because the store is an experience in and of itself. And I think what can be done is that we, first and foremost, I think it's important that when we look at the store, that we are balancing monetization with that customer experience really well. And I think where brands and retailers can come together is making sure that we're not aiming for perfection from the get-go. So this is where a lot of the standardization work that we've done, the translation is, this is kind of like what we'd consider like perfect. But I think somewhere in the middle of, we're at the starting point today, and then getting to perfect, somewhere in the middle is actually just where we need to get to in the next year, 2 years, call it. So I think that's where like the song and dance between retailers and brands needs to happen, is saying, all right, what is good enough for right now so that we can best understand things like exposure, we can understand if sales lift is even occurring because of the media that we're driving in store, online, outside of the retail network.
Geolocation and transaction matchback both seem like obvious, natural tools when it comes to connecting omni-channel campaigns in store to digital and back. How do those two and maybe other tools fit into the measurement puzzle for marketers?
Yeah, geolocation, transaction matchback, those are all big pieces to this overall puzzle. Like I said, making sure that we understand exposure in the store. That's something that geolocation can definitely help us with. And then the matchback is kind of where a lot of the magic is made, because we can then be able to show what impact a campaign in the store had on the sales that we are able to identify through things like loyalty IDs. So that's, I think those are the big puzzle pieces. There's probably other puzzle pieces too. When we look at things like what is going to be considered a viewable impression in the store, that's another bit of the puzzle piece, because brands are going to want to know if I'm running digital media on screens, or maybe even digital audio in a convenience store, who saw it? How many people were able to see it, and did it eventually drive the person to make the decision to pick from the shelf on the left-hand side where my product is, rather than the right-hand side where my competitor is? So again, it kind of goes back to we don't need to have perfection, but we do need to have some of these pieces at least in place, so that we're able to justify and also show the value that in-store media, the way that we're talking about it, is additive on top of what we've been doing from a shopper and trade marketing perspective forever. So things like physical displays, promotions, FSIs, slotting even, making sure that everything that we are showing from a measurement perspective is linked to kind of those classic old school shopper marketing principles of, once the person got into the store, did we have an impact on their purchasing decision?
As a consumer, when I'm not in the store necessarily, I'm probably watching CTV, I'm on my phone, or maybe also experiencing out-of-home, digital out-of-home. The word incrementality, the term incrementality comes up a lot in retail media. What's the smartest way to think of incrementality across those channels?
Boy, you tell me, it comes up a lot. We talk about incrementality a lot, and as it relates to CTV, mobile, digital out-of-home, I'm thinking about incrementality in a channel agnostic way, and I think that's the way our industry needs to think of it, is that incrementality helps you understand whether the media had impact, not what media drove, is getting the credit for the impact. So that's a really important distinction to make, but I do think that it is going to play a huge role in terms of connecting various channels and showing how they all work together in an omni-channel way. We're actually working on a work product right now around incrementality, kind of building upon the standards that we've built from a measurement perspective for retail media, and making it even more business friendly in terms of, if you're an average retailer or an average brand, how should I be thinking about incrementality, and how is it different than all the other metrics that I'm being given? It's not ROAS. It's complementary to ROAS, but ROAS is really telling you efficiency. It's not attribution, like I said. Attribution is telling you what should get credit. Incrementality should tell you what is the outcome what is the whole outcome that is happening because of the media that I'm spending, if I hadn't spent it at all. Now, the last thing I'll point out is that incrementality and in-store, I know you didn't ask about that, but incrementality and in-store is actually kind of a tricky area, because a lot of the questions that I talked about before about exposure and viewability or impressions in the store, it's hard to do a holdout without those factors. It's hard to do a holdout in the store, right? Like, you and I aren't going to necessarily be held out from seeing an ad in the store. You can certainly do it in a regional basis, but we can't do it on a more one-to-one control group level in the store just yet. So that's something where incrementality is a little bit undefined of how do we. Right now, it's really defined in terms of on-site, even off-site. We can start to build out incremental approaches to understand that outcome and the impact. But weaving that into the store is, I think that's a little bit of a longer-term solution that'll come.